welcome family, friends, and all who gather here today to remember and celebrate a remarkable man, James Jim Gallant. My name is Debbie Way. I'm a life celebrant who, along with funeral director Josh Fossler and the entire Wyuka Funeral Home staff, feel honored to help Jim's family remember and celebrate his life. On behalf of the Gallant family, I extend a warm thank you for the gift of your presence, loving presence here this morning. I can assure you the outpouring that we've experienced here this morning means more to his family than words could ever express. So from them, thank you so very much for being here to support them and to love them today. We gather today with heavy hearts, but also with deep gratitude for the extraordinary gift of Jim's life. He was a gentle giant in the truest sense of the words. Those of you who were fortunate enough to receive one of his famous hugs know exactly what I mean. They weren't quick, polite embraces. They were full-hearted, all-embracing, safe in this moment kind of hugs. The kind that made the world feel a little smaller and kinder, if only for a few seconds. Here are just a few of the beautiful ways he showed that gentle heart. He was a listener, truly, deeply. When you spoke to him, you felt heard, not just acknowledged. And when he offered advice, only when asked, it came from a place of quiet wisdom and genuine care. He found peace and joy in the simpler, timeless things: a fishing rod in his hand, the stillness of the lake, the crispness of a fall morning as he headed out to hunt. A lover of the outdoors, he found a kind of spiritual tranquility that being in the mountains gave him. And beyond his own pleasures, he was generous to his core. If someone needed help, a hand, a ride, a meal, a place to sleep, or a person in need of a quiet word of encouragement, Jim was there. No questions asked, no tally kept. Living the spirit of the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, lives on in every person he lifted, most especially everyone in this room. Without question, he loved his family more than anything else in this world. His humble demeanor that was never loud but about his roles as a husband, father, and grandfather was a trait that underlined the kind of person he was. He didn't need a viral post on social media or a best dad ever mug. He was the kind of man that kept showing up year after year in small, unglamorous, repetitive ways that eventually add up to something very rare. His sheer presence gave his family a sense of feeling safe, secure, and loved unconditionally. Jim was a one-of-a-kind man who exemplified everything good in the world. Today we grieve the tremendous hole his passing leaves in the lives of all who knew him. We'll take time today to reflect upon his quiet legacy through a few stories that highlight the everlasting handprint he leaves in this world and on the hearts he touched. James was born on October 1st, 1961, here in Lincoln, Nebraska, to John Gallant and Beverly Jabs Coram. He was the oldest of three children born to the couple, James being the oldest, and then John and Jeannie, or Ray, as they called her for short. His father named him after his grandfather's brother, James Alvin Gallant, who was a World War II hero, shot down during the massive D-Day invasion of Normandy in 1944. For all his life, he was proud to be his great-uncle's namesake. Jim acquired his lifelong love of fishing and hunting from his father. His dad instilled in him a reverence for nature. For years, Jim's favorite places to fish were Indian Cave, Branched Oak, and Pawnee Lake. He was quick to recognize that many of the best places to fish were in his own backyard. One of Jim's favorite fishing experiences he loved to tell was the time his Uncle Ray and son Jason were fishing at Red Cedar in a flat-bottom boat on the lake. Best fishing trip ever. They were catching 10-inch, 12-inch crappies one after another. They would no more take a fish off their hooks, and as soon as they got their lines back in the water, they felt another crappie take the bait. They had loads of crappies that day. And during high school, Jim enjoyed spending his spare time working on cars. Excuse me. The skills he acquired would serve him well for a lifetime, including his friends and family. After graduating from Lincoln High School, pardon me, he held various jobs as he looked for the right fit for him. One of those jobs was working for Brunswick, now known as General Dynamics. His focus on perfection served him and the company very well. Brunswick Defense was historically recognized for specializing in fiberglass and reinforced plastic structures. Jim's skills elevated the company's recognition by becoming highly skilled at working with fiberglass. Several examples of his work were considered museum quality because they were pure perfection, such as the radar disc he designed, allowing a helicopter to detect and track targets while remaining hidden behind terrain, providing a significant tactical advantage for engagement. During the last 25 years of his career, he was a maintenance buyer for ConAgra, or, as he referred to it, a computer jockey. Throughout all his life, Jim demonstrated a work ethic second to none, often holding multiple jobs at one time, even while he pursued his college degree and raising a family. When his oldest son, Jason, was old enough to join the Boy Scouts, Jim became a den leader. The Boy Scouts could not ask for a more positive role model to inspire young boys. He was a steady, enthusiastic adult who instilled in the young boys the value of character, friendships, confidence, love of the outdoors, demonstrating skills that would last them a lifetime. Long after stepping down as a den master, Jim rarely went without a piece of rope in his pocket because he enjoyed tying different knots to keep his hands busy, which will remain a fond memory of the many small quirks he had that his family will remember with a smile. Speaking of quirky, Jim loved nothing more than to tell a joke that would cause people to hesitate before they laugh. Often because it requires a moment to process, or it has a bit of a dark undertone, or in Jim's case, intellectually demanding, which delighted him immensely. However, once he realized you got it, a sly smile of satisfaction would light up his face. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. While he could be funny, he was also a no-nonsense kind of guy that forced people to think about what they were asking of him. A good example is the time his sister, Ray, called him complaining about her electricity being out at her home. He listened, then explained that it may be a while before it's back on, and she would just have to wait it out. A little while later, when she called him back, extremely frustrated because her washer would not fill with water, not making the connection that she needed electricity to do so, Jim's answer to her, "You're only allowed to ask one question a day. You need to study my answer to your first question." Jim liked being funny and telling jokes, but he wasn't above making fun of himself. While pieces of meat, hamburgers, steaks were cooking on his new gas grill, Jim went into the house for a few minutes while they cooked. To his surprise, when he came out to check on them, They were burnt to hard black crisps, resembling hockey pucks. From that day on, whenever anyone asked him about his grilling skills, he'd reply, "I make great hockey pucks," a running joke that will remain one of his family's favorite memories of him. Well, Lori was a longtime acquaintance of Jim's family. They had known each other since they were teenagers. Throughout the years, Lori would run into Jim and his first wife, Terry, when they would stop into the bar her mother owned and where Lori worked, Rivera's at 20th and West O Streets. They'd exchange hellos, followed with a brief catch-up story, and then go their separate ways. After Terry died, James ran into Lori once again. A few days later, he called to ask if she'd like to get a beer with him. Little did they know it would become a love connection. The two dated for 4 years before tying the knot. On June 22nd, 2011, with Lori's friend Cindy and Jim's son Justin by their sides, they exchanged wedding vows, in Las Vegas. Lori will never forget how hot it was on that day, 109 degrees, and Jim was wearing leather. Although he was so happy, it's doubtful that he noticed. During their next 14 years as husband and wife, James insisted on referring to their wedding anniversaries as honeymoon 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which I think is one of the sweetest sentiments I have ever heard. And why? Because he never wanted the honeymoon phase of their relationship to end. And their honeymoons were always memorable. They honeymooned in Las Vegas, parasailed in Florida, immersed themselves in the scenic beauty of Yellowstone, to name just a few. While it wasn't on their honeymoon, so to speak, Lori was thrilled to treat her husband to his very first concert. Disturbed, last year. This man, 64, went to his first concert. And Lori was thrilled, just being with him and experiencing that with him. A memory more precious today than ever before. James had no lack of hobbies to keep him engaged, entertained, enlightened. His family was in awe of his vast and varied skills. His tinkering with woodworking in the garage oftentimes resulted in a new piece of furniture for the house. In addition, his woodworking skills, coupled with his need for perfection, produced some of the most exquisite wooden cheese knives. How he could turn a scrap piece of wood into a practical and beautiful piece of craftsmanship never failed to amaze his family. Well, calling James a perfectionist may be somewhat of an understatement. He didn't just aim to do something good. His sights were set to producing flawless, like works of art. His handwriting was so meticulous. His script had a typewritten quality about it due to its precise detail. His scribbles and mindless doodles could oftentimes be categorized as works of art created by a renowned artist. He had the ability to transform a single piece of paper into intricate sculptures resembling animals, objects, or geometric shapes using only folds. And his attention to detail didn't stop at handwriting, doodling, and origami. It included loading the dishwasher, his real work of art. Lori and Justin laughed when they told me how he liked to load the dishwasher. Perfectly, of course. And if someone else beat him to it, such as Lori or Justin or another family member, he would meticulously rearrange each plate, bowl, cup, pot, what have you, in the dish, and to satisfy his need for picture-perfect perfection, even when it came to dishwashing. The same was true when helping a friend load a moving truck. Justin says his father insisted on doing it himself. so everything was stacked neatly and concisely to avoid the risk of having to make 2 trips because the truck was sloppily loaded. Where others saw a bunch of furniture and boxes, his dad saw a puzzle whose pieces fit together perfectly when done right. In other words, Jim's way. We all have certain sayings we detest, usually because they are phrases that feel overused, insincere, lazy, or just simply cringeworthy to our ears. One of those triggers for James is when his son Jason, a typical 14-year-old at the time going through a rebellious stage, would answer him with and any parent in this room has heard this many times, whatever, which triggered a kind of internal scream in his dad. On one unforgettable occasion, when Jason flippantly answered his dad with whatever, James picked up the chair his son was sitting in, and that includes chair, and threw both across the carport. James had no tolerance for that kind of lazy, disrespectful language, and Jason learned that right there at that moment. On the other hand, there were words and phrases James had fun with, such as gooder, in exchange for the word better. He liked using it when he knew it would get a reaction, like a puzzled look from the person he was saying it to. Well, one of the attributes of this gentle giant of a man was his generosity. Jim was the kind of person who quietly made the lives of others a little less heavy. His generosity wasn't for show. It was steady, instinctive, and rooted in a deep belief that if he has something to give, time, resources, strength, or a listening ear, then someone else probably needs it more than he does right now. And here are just a few examples of his generosity. Justin fondly remembers when he was growing up how his father would invite people that had no place to go for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner to join the Gallant family at their home. This included folks like the gas station attendant, a homeless person, the clerk at the grocery store, or a coworker. Anyone he thought could use a little holiday cheer, he extended a warm invitation. If someone needed a place to stay for a night or two, the family sofa was theirs to sleep on, no questions asked. When he saw a police officer, deputy, or someone in the military eating at a restaurant or drive-thru, he insisted on picking up the tab. On snowy winter days, he'd throw chains along with a tow rope in the back of his truck and proceeded to drive around town to help pull drivers out of ditches for free. Since he was once a tow truck driver, he knew how costly a slippery slide into a ditch can cost a person. When Cindy's son and best friend got stuck, they didn't call their parents. They called Jim, knowing he would be there to help them because he never failed to show up for the people, for anybody, when they needed him. In the end, this man didn't see himself as a hero. He just saw people who could use a little lift. His life is proof that true generosity isn't about how much you have. It's about how freely you give what you do have. As a result, people around him felt a little safer, a little more seen, and a lot less alone. That's the quiet power of a truly generous man. And oh, how the world could use a lot more Jims right now. In the end, heartfelt reflections from family and friends connect so powerfully because they remind each other that they love the same soul, but in their own unique ways. The memories may be different, but the love they had for James was the same. Lori's is committed to carry on the generosity he showed others by helping them, maybe buy a meal at Arby's, an extra meal, and giving it to a homeless man or woman. His son Justin is a beautiful, beautiful reflection of his father. Worried about whether he could fill his dad's shoes. Let me tell you, Justin, you emulate so many of the attributes you told me about your father, and that you so admired about him. Your father's, I can assure you, Justin, your father's legacy is sure to remain alive and well in you, Casey, and all of his grandchildren. And for family friend Cindy, she will hold near to her heart Jim's assurance that she'll always be safe and a valued member of the Gallant family, underlying Jim's unwavering inclusiveness when it comes to family and friends. The stories I've shared here today were from Jim's family as told to me. The following two are handwritten tributes, and I'm honored to share their inspiring words. This one from Mike Beal. To a man who was a true role model. Jim, thank you for accepting me into your family at a young age. Jason and I became friends in second grade, and you were always a wonderful role model for me. There are a few men in my extended family who helped shape the person I am today. Irv Haig, Fabian Moore, Mike Firestone, and Jim Gallant. You showed us what hard work and selfless service was all about. You didn't have to spend hours on all of us other boys, but you did. I know Jason and I could be a handful at times and testing your patience, but you were always tolerant, kind, and mentoring. I appreciate what you did for me growing up and that you were there for me to be a witness on my marriage certificate. Thank you for allowing me and growing up with you and your family. Of course, signed Mike. And this beautiful note from his daughter-in-law, Casey. The first time I met James was when I started to date his son. One night while Justin was working, I was at home and felt unsafe due to my roommate situation. Justin said that my daughter and I could go over to his dad's house, and he would be home in a couple of hours. But I could just walk in the front door, and he would have his dad or Lori unlock it for me. If you know me, I am not a person that will talk to people unknown to me unless I absolutely have to. I am super awkward. I asked Justin many times if he was sure that I could go over there since he isn't there. He said, yes, just go in the front door. It is unlocked. We walk in and we are greeted by Mr. James and Lori sitting there. And of course, I have to make it awkward, and I just can't walk downstairs. I have to say, good morning. Mind you, it is 11 o'clock at night. His repose was, morning. I'm sure he knew I was nervous on just being there without Justin, but he welcomed me without judgment. From day one, James has welcomed us into his home and family. He is by far the best father-in-law anyone could have. Thank you, Casey. Is there anyone that would like to, you can stand in place and say a few words if you'd like. Oh, she came with a notebook. She's got notes. Oh, you can come over here. Yeah, of course.
Hi, I'm Aro. I became friends with Jim in the fall of 2020. I was an IBEW electrical apprentice helping a crew update the ConAgra plant that he worked at. I was also a few weeks out of the psych ward trying to stay afloat while I was drowning. and Jim was there. I have to wonder how many of our stories dawn and set on that statement. Jim was there. For me, it was diner breakfasts, 10 cups of coffee, a plate of untouched eggs, and Jim was there. It was late night phone calls and panic attacks, and Jim was there. It was the too few days when the clouds parted and the sun came out, and Jim was there. To be in his presence was to be seen and accepted. He filled the spaces between my shaky, terrified words with a warm, patient silence. He reached across space and distance to share his understanding, his experience. And like all things that he poured his dedication and love into, I grew and healed with his care. And in addition to saving my life, Jim became my blueprint to help and serve others. Almost 6 years later, I am a community organizer in Pueblo, Colorado. My day-to-day varies wildly. I get to escort patients at a local clinic. I get to help provide food and clothing to homeless people at a weekly outreach. I get to connect resources and organizations. I get to run queer programming and food exchanges that changes the outcome of people who need it the most. All day, every day, I get to help. But the best parts of everything that I do happen over shaky cups of coffee and plates of cold eggs. It's my turn to sit in silence without answers, without judgment. It is my turn to keep my phone on loud. It's my turn to be that person, and I can be that person because Jim made me brave. Whatever blueprint Jim drafted for you, I hope you follow it. I hope you plant flowers and take pictures. I hope you love so fiercely that you light someone's way home. And I hope you never forget how the love and the dedication of one man changed the course of so many of our lives. Thank you so much.
Wow. That is one of the best testimonials about a person's life I have ever heard. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, that was so beautiful. I'll never forget it. And I don't think anyone in this room will either. It really is what Jim was all about. Anyone else? I know that's kind of a hard act to follow. You should have went last if anybody else is going to speak. But don't let her persuade you or her beautiful reflections on his life keep anyone else from even if it's just a thank you. Sometimes people just have to say thank you. Well, there will be a reception that will give everyone here an opportunity to share some of your stories with his family. On Saturday, January 3rd, 2026, as his wife gently kissed and held his hand in hers, and his son Justin lovingly stood by, James passed from this world to the next place. He was 64 years old. Holding him forever in their hearts is his family, his wife, Lori Gallant, son Justin and wife Casey Gallant, stepchildren Amanda Evers, and Brian and his wife Carrie Morgan, Kristen and her husband Brandon Vanderlinden, and Gabby Dutton of Omaha. His brother, of course, John Gallant Jr. of Wyoming. His family also includes 15 grandchildren and one great-grandson, along with adopted family member, Cindy. He was preceded in death by his parents, John Gallant Sr. and Beverly Gallant, his son, Jason Gallant, his sister, Jeannie Lewis, and his first wife, Terry Gallant. Well, before concluding the service, the Gallant family has asked me to invite you to please join them in the Wyuka Funeral Home reception room for food and fellowship, and to view the collage of photos specially selected by his family in a tribute video they'd like to share with all of you. It is also an opportunity for each of you to share your favorite memory of Jim with his family, stories they will forever cherish. Well, one phrase James truly detested, one I hadn't mentioned earlier, was the simple and oft-repeated line, "It is what it is." Remarkably, within just a few hours after his father's passing, Justin spotted those exact words on a bumper sticker on the car directly in front of him in traffic. Later that same day, he heard the phrase woven into a song on the radio. And then, as if to drive the point home, that very same car, or at least one that looked like it, with its unmistakable bumper sticker, appeared in front of him once more. While Jim was still here, living and breathing in this world, he likely heard those words as a weary surrender, a powerless shrug, a quiet complaint of, "Why me?" a form of weakness and resignation that his strong, determined spirit simply could not abide. But after crossing from this life into the next, Jim may have heard the phrase with fresh, gentler eyes. No longer a defeatist cry. It transformed him into something profoundly liberating, an invitation to release a struggle against what cannot be changed. Knowing how deeply his son Justin, his wife Lori, daughter-in-law Casey, and their grandchildren, friend Cindy, and the rest of the family were grieving, Jim chose to reach out in the quiet, everyday ways he always had, through a bumper sticker in traffic and a lyric on the radio. His message was clear, tender, and unmistakably his. Stop fighting what cannot be undone. Accept it, breathe, keep living. I'm okay, and in time, you will be too. Because that was Jim at his core, a man with the biggest, kindest, most generous heart imaginable. Even in eternity, he could not bear the thought of his family suffering any longer than necessary. His love found a way to comfort them, one small sign at a time. As you say your goodbye to this amazing, gentle giant of a man who you were blessed to have in your lives, may you carry forward the lessons he taught you. Be gentle, be kind, be generous, share your big heart, give good hugs, listen well, and help without keeping score. May you keep Jim's wishes for this world alive by being what you loved about him. Like that. What was your first name again, honey? Ara stated back there. She is a perfect reflection of Jim's life and what he believed, what he valued. And everybody in this room can be that, or can expand on it. And when you do, his light will continue to shine in this world through each and every one of you, now and forever. And I'd like to say to the Gallant family, thank you for sharing your memories of him with me. It's been my honor to help you remember and celebrate his life.